Most Toyota owners check their oil. They replace their filters. They even rotate their tires on schedule. But there is one fluid sitting quietly inside your braking system right now that could be silently destroying your brake lines, your master cylinder, and your ABS module, and almost nobody talks about it. Brake fluid, specifically the wrong type of it. Studies show that over 90% of Toyota owners either use the wrong specification, ignore contamination entirely, or go years past the safe service interval without a single thought. And here is the brutal part. Your brakes can still feel perfectly normal while this damage is happening. You won't know until the pedal goes soft, or worse, until it goes straight to the floor. This video is going to change how you think about brake fluid forever. Let's start from the beginning. Why brake fluid is different from every other fluid in your car. Oil degrades slowly. Coolant lasts years. But brake fluid has a problem that no other fluid in your car has. It actively absorbs water from the air around it. This property is called hygroscopy, and it is the root cause of almost every brake fluid failure on the road today. Your Toyota's braking system is not completely sealed. Moisture enters through brake hose walls, reservoir caps, and caliper seals over time. That moisture gets absorbed directly into the brake fluid. Once water enters the system, two things happen that you cannot reverse without a full system flush. First, the boiling point drops dramatically. Fresh DOT3 brake fluid boils at around 401 degrees Fahrenheit. But once it absorbs just 3.7% water by volume, that boiling point falls to roughly 284 degrees Fahrenheit. During hard braking or mountain driving, brake calipers generate intense heat. If your fluid boils, it turns to vapor, and vapor compresses. That is when your brake pedal suddenly feels like it is pressing into a sponge. That is brake fade, and it happens without warning. Second, water accelerates corrosion inside the system. Brake lines, master cylinder pistons, ABS module valves, and wheel cylinder bores are all attacked slowly and silently. By the time you see rust staining or feel a soft pedal, the corrosion has already done significant damage. Toyota officially specifies DOT3 brake fluid for most of their vehicles. Some performance and newer models call for DOT4. This is not a suggestion. It is an engineering requirement built into the system's pressure tolerances, seal materials, and component specifications. Here is where most owners make their first mistake. They walk into an auto parts store, see a bottle labeled simply brake fluid, and assume it is fine. But DOT3 and DOT4 are not the same fluid. They have different viscosities, different minimum boiling points, and different additive packages. DOT4 has a higher dry boiling point, 446 degrees Fahrenheit minimum, compared to DOT3's 401 degrees minimum. If your Toyota calls for DOT3, using DOT4 is technically acceptable in a pinch because DOT4 is backwards compatible. But here is what they never tell you. DOT4 absorbs moisture faster than DOT3. So while its fresh boiling point is higher, its wet boiling point degrades more quickly in daily use, meaning it needs more frequent replacement to stay safe. The truly dangerous mistake is going the other direction. Putting DOT3 into a Toyota that specifies DOT4 gives you reduced performance under heat stress, and never, under any circumstances, use DOT5. DOT5 is silicone-based rather than glycol-based, and it is completely incompatible with Toyota's ABS modulators, master cylinder seals, and caliper piston seals. Mixing DOT5 with DOT3 or DOT4 causes a chemical reaction that degrades both fluids instantly and can swell or destroy rubber seals throughout the entire braking system. Always check your Toyota owner's manual or the cap on the brake fluid reservoir located under the hood near the firewall on the driver's side. The specification is printed directly on that cap. Match it exactly. How long has your brake fluid actually been in there? Toyota's official recommendation is to replace brake fluid every 2 years or 30,000 miles, whichever comes first. That interval exists because of moisture absorption. After 2 years in a glycol-based system, brake fluid has typically absorbed enough moisture to drop its boiling point into dangerous territory during aggressive use. Here is the reality check. When was the last time you or any mechanic touched your brake fluid? Most Toyota owners who come in for service have no record of it ever being changed. Some of them have been driving on the same fluid for 5, 6, even 10 years without realizing it. Brake fluid does not look dramatically different as it ages. Fresh fluid is nearly clear or faintly golden. Old fluid turns dark brown or black. But color alone does not tell the full story. Fluid can look relatively clean and still be dangerously saturated with moisture. The only reliable way to test moisture content at home is with an inexpensive brake fluid test strip or a digital refractometer that reads moisture percentage. Any reading above 3% water content means the fluid needs to be replaced immediately. If you have never thought about your brake fluid before today, there is a strong chance it needs attention right now. What contaminated brake fluid does to your Toyota's ABS module? This is the part that nobody talks about at the quick lube shop, and it is the most expensive consequence of running dirty fluid. Your Toyota's anti-lock brake system module contains a hydraulic control unit filled with small solenoid valves, check valves, and pressure accumulators. These components operate with extremely tight tolerances, often less than 1/1000th of an inch of clearance. Corrosion from moisture-laden fluid does not need to be severe to cause damage. Even minor pitting inside those valve bores creates performance inconsistencies that trigger fault codes or compromise ABS function entirely. A replacement ABS module for a Toyota Camry, Corolla, RAV4, or Highlander typically costs between $800 and $1,500 for parts alone, not including labor. The master cylinder and brake booster assembly sitting directly in front of the driver's side firewall are similarly expensive to replace when corrosion sets in. Compare that to a brake fluid flush. It typically costs between $80 and $150 at a Toyota dealership or an independent shop. The math is not complicated. 2 years of fluid replacement versus 1 ABS module replacement gives a decade of protection for a fraction of the price. Signs your Toyota's brake fluid is already causing problems. Your Toyota will tell you something is wrong before total failure, but only if you know what to listen for. A soft or spongy brake pedal that was not there before is one of the first signs that moisture has worked its way into the brake lines, or that a small amount of vapor is compressing under pressure. Press your brake pedal firmly with the car stationary. It should feel solid and stop well before touching the floor. Any sponginess or gradual sinking under sustained pressure means the system needs immediate inspection. A brake pedal that requires more pressure than usual to achieve the same stopping force is another warning sign. This often points to internal caliper piston corrosion that has increased friction inside the bore, or to contaminated fluid that is not transferring pressure as efficiently as it should. If your ABS warning light or brake warning light has come on, do not ignore it. Run the fluid test first before paying for expensive diagnostics. Many apparent ABS fault codes clear permanently after a complete fluid flush because the sensor contamination was fluid-related, not a hardware failure. Dark, nearly black fluid, visible through the translucent brake fluid reservoir on the driver's side of the engine compartment near the top of the brake booster, is a clear visual indicator that service is overdue. How to check your brake fluid reservoir without making mistakes. The brake fluid reservoir is the small, translucent plastic container sitting on top of the master cylinder, directly at the top of the brake booster on the driver's side firewall under the hood. On most Toyota models, including the Camry, Corolla, RAV4, Highlander, and Tacoma, it has a black cap with the brake fluid specification printed on it. Before you open that cap, clean the area around it with a dry cloth. Brake fluid is hygroscopic, and even a brief exposure to open air during inspection allows moisture to enter. Do not leave the cap off longer than necessary. Check the fluid level against the minimum and maximum lines marked on the side of the reservoir. A low fluid level does not always mean the fluid is gone. It often means your front brake pads or rear brake pads have worn down enough to allow the caliper pistons to extend further, which pulls fluid from the reservoir. Always check pad thickness before simply adding fluid to a low reservoir. Adding fluid to compensate for worn pads can overfill the system and create hydraulic pressure problems when the caliper pistons are eventually compressed during brake pad replacement. Flushing brake fluid the right way. A brake fluid flush is not the same as draining and refilling the reservoir. Simply sucking out the reservoir and adding fresh fluid leaves contaminated, moisture-laden fluid throughout the brake lines, caliper passages, and ABS module. A proper flush pushes new fluid through the entire system until clean fluid runs from each brake bleeder screw, which are the small valve fittings located at the top rear of each brake caliper at all 4 wheels. Toyota recommends using fresh fluid from a sealed container. Brake fluid containers that have been sitting open in a garage absorb moisture from the air and can contaminate the system you are trying to protect. Always use a fresh, unopened bottle matching your vehicle's specification. If you are having this done professionally, ask the technician to show you the fluid coming from the bleeder screws at the end of the procedure. Fresh fluid from the bleeder screws should be nearly clear. If it is still dark or shows any discoloration, the flush is not complete. The one habit that protects your entire braking system. Every 2 years, that's the interval. Set a calendar reminder, write it in your maintenance log, or ask your shop to flag it at your next service. It costs less than a tank of gas. It protects a braking system that can cost thousands to repair when corrosion takes hold. Toyota engineers built that 2-year interval into their service schedules because they know how moisture accumulation works in glycol-based fluid over real-world time. It is not a suggestion designed to sell service visits. It is a maintenance window that directly determines whether your ABS module, master cylinder, brake calipers, and steel brake lines survive the decade. Your Toyota's engine gets oil changes every few thousand miles. Your brake fluid deserves the same attention because when the engine fails, you pull over safely. When the brakes fail, the outcome is far worse. Check your fluid today. Look at that reservoir cap. If you cannot remember the last time that fluid was changed, treat it as an overdue service starting right now. If you are enjoying this video, consider watching the next one where I share the exact fluids Toyota dealers use that most owners never think to check.